This time on Classic Motorcycle A to Z, it's the letter H. So I'm going to be spending the next couple of months on a major adventure. This doesn't mean we're going to leave you without content though. We're putting together a series of videos which we're calling Classic Motorcycle A to Z. So basically we're going to run through the alphabet and give some history and information about various classic motorcycle companies as we go. Founded in 1903, Harley-Davidson is perhaps the best known motorcycle manufacturer in the world. Simply put, if you ask a non-motorcyclist to name a motorcycle, they invariably will say Harley-Davidson. Of course, these days the company is best known for its mighty V-twins. It all started with just a one-cylinder and rather small, just 116cc to be exact. But things did grow rather rapidly. By 1903 and their first complete motorcycles, displacement was up to 405cc. 1907, however, would be a big year for Harley-Davidson. The company had now expanded into the second floor of their workshop because production numbers for 1907 had reached as high as 150 machines. Oh, and of course it was also the year that Harley-Davidson demonstrated their first 45-degree V-twin, following on from competitors such as Indian and Flying Merkle. Harley's first V-twins were of 880cc and produced around 7 horsepower, enough for top speed somewhere around 60 miles an hour, which is pretty good going on the dirt track roads of the day. The V-twins did prove highly popular and would of course become synonymous with the Harley-Davidson brand. And the impact of the V-twin was massive. From just 150 machines in 1907, production rose to 450 machines in 1908 and 1,149 machines in 1909. In 1917, when the US entered the First World War, Harley-Davidson was well placed to provide them with dispatch machines and would sell 20,000 machines to the US military during the course of the war. 1920 would see Harley-Davidson become the largest motorcycle manufacturer in the world, producing 28,189 machines during the course of the year. Seen as something of a luxury item, Harley-Davidson sales plummeted during the Great Depression and fell as low as 3,700 machines in 1933. In order to survive, Harley-Davidson diversified. They produced three-wheeled server cars, as well as generator sets, and somewhat ironically would license out the designs for production by a Japanese manufacturer. 1936 would see the introduction of a new sporting range of engines, with for the first time on a road-going Harley-Davidson an overhead valve cylinder head, with the legendary knucklehead motor, an engine which would remain in the range alongside the touring side valves through until 1947 and the arrival of the shovel head. The post-war years would see something of a mixed bag for Harley. There was the Hummer, a tiny two-stroke based on the RT125 DKW. There was a new range of single-cylinder machines, actually built by Macchi over in Italy, a company initially part-owned by Harley-Davidson and then later wholly owned by Harley-Davidson. And 1957 would of course see the introduction of the first Sportsters, a machine based on the earlier side-valve K-series. A machine which provided Harley-Davidson with something it could better take on the lightweight and nimble parallel twins and singles coming over from the other side of the pond. Oh, and then there was AMF ownership of course. But one way or another, Harley-Davidson would survive, even taking the Japanese invasion into their stride eventually. In 1981, AMF sold Harley-Davidson to a consortium which included Willie G. Davidson, a descendant of the original founders, and over the next few years they would work hard to produce a brand which was the quintessential American motorcycle, clawing back some of the damage done by the AMF era. And today Harley-Davidson faces a number of challenges. Its traditional owners are becoming too old to ride, and like all manufacturers, it's really struggled to attract younger people to the brand. Harley-Davidson's been around now for almost 120 years. Whether it'll survive for another 120 remains to be seen. Hesketh Motorcycles was founded by Alexander the Third Lord Hesketh in 1980. He originally wanted to use the Brough Superior name, but was not able to secure its use. Hesketh had been involved in Formula One racing and was synonymous with the early career of James Hunt before his move over to McLaren. So while he had some manufacturing facilities, they were rather small. But in fact he'd never really meant to go it alone, and had even courted Triumph for a small period. But the state of the Triumph works in the early 80s meant that this deal would never come to fruition. So instead the Lord tried to go it alone, and unfortunately, just like so many before him, the money would out before the motorcycle was completed. With its mighty 1000cc V-twin Wasp engine, the machine was powerful, but it was also incomplete. The gearbox didn't work properly and the whole thing was mechanically noisy. But the company needed the cash, so needed to get some bikes out of the door. As a result, the first Heskeths would hit the road in a very poor state of development. This was predictably a complete disaster, and the press backlash from the testing of the machines meant that the company went under with just 139 bikes completed. The plucky lord would try again in 1983, but again would be met with failure, with just 40 machines being sold. Nick Boom, the development engineer and test rider on the original project, would take up the reins and would carry on hand-built production of the machines in tiny numbers at a facility in the stable block of Easton Neston, Lord Hesketh's estate, and he would manage to produce around 12 machines a year, before the unfortunate demise of the V1000 in 2006. And while the Hesketh name does indeed survive today, the V1000 does not. Since 1959, Honda has been the largest motorcycle manufacturer in the world, with mind-boggling sales totalling over 400 million units. But the company's beginnings actually resemble those of the British industry, because its first machines used proprietary engines, essentially generator units, pushed into bicycle frames, which in war-torn Japan was just what the people needed to get around. I said the company at its beginnings producing machines like the Cub, which had a small two-stroke engine mounted to one side of the rear wheel. But a visit to the US and Europe in the 1950s pointed the way for future development for Honda, and the company would adapt and improve many continental building practices to create the Super Cub, a machine which is still with us today and is the best-selling vehicle of all time. In the early 60s, the company would expand aggressively into the US market, where clever slogans like "You meet the nicest people on a Honda" would be a great way of selling machines to people who didn't usually buy motorcycles. And Honda would continue to expand and develop, introducing the CB750 in the late 60s, providing the average man on the street with a 4-cylinder superbike. And while Honda would have less success with its 6-cylinder CBX in the early 80s, the company would continue to thrive, with total production reaching its all-time peak in 1982 at 3 million units. And the confidence of the company in this era is clearly demonstrated by any one of their brochures. Pick up a 1982 or 83 brochure and the breadth and scope of Honda's range is quite amazing. With single cylinders big and small, V-twins pointing in both directions like the CX, the mighty Goldwing, and even V4s and across the frame 4s all running alongside each other. And indeed, many of the machines of this era would later be regarded as iconic, with the Goldwing now evolving into the ultimate mile muncher, with stereo systems and every gadget the 80s could provide. And then of course there was a V4. Early V4s didn't go down too well, with the first VF suffering a catalogue of mechanical woes, while the later VFR range is a very different story indeed. And into the 90s, the company would make a major step forward into the development of the Lito class sports bike, with the introduction of the first Fireblade, 900cc engine in 600cc packaging, an undoubted game changer and a major sales success, and a machine that in one form or another remains with us today. In recent years, the company has had to adapt to an ever-changing and in fact ever-shrinking big bike market, and with machines like the Grom, Honda is working hard to reconnect with younger riders. And while Honda sales are today only about a fifth of what they once were, the company remains truly massive and provides a very varied and interesting range of motorcycles to what is undoubtedly a very varied and interesting marketplace. And so today Honda remains number one, the biggest and for some, the best motorcycle manufacturer in the world. But whether it stays on top in the face of Chinese competition, only time will tell. Hope you enjoyed the video and found it interesting. Look out, there will be more videos in the series coming soon. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe, and of course, thank you very much for watching.